What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. My name is Jaya and I love all things books. However, every once in a while we'll get one for the doozies and you quickly realize that not every book is for you. Now, for the most part, most of the books I read tend to be between 3 and 5 stars. And the reason for this is because I am usually not the harshest critic when it comes to books. I appreciate authors' efforts and time put into creating a book, so I oftentimes tend to be a little bit more lenient. But every once in a while, you have those 2 stars or 1-star reads that just cross your desk. And unfortunately, I do feel like we need to talk about the elephant in the room. It's reading time here at JB's Corner. Thank you for being here. I will be talking about my least favorite books of 2025 today. If that sounds like something you would enjoy, definitely stick around. We have 5 total books to get through because, like I said, I'm not the harshest critic, but I do feel like these 5 books in particular rubbed me the wrong way. That is not to say the writing was terrible, the book was terrible, or the author doesn't deserve to be an author. That is not at all what I'm saying. I am simply saying that these books were not for me. If you guys want to know more about the 5 books that made it on the worst books of 2025 for me personally, definitely stick around. For those of you that are new here, welcome to the channel. My name is Jaya. I talk all things books here on this channel. As you can see, I am obsessed with books, more specifically fiction, but all different genres of fiction. And then I do also enjoy occasionally a memoir or a learning based book, not so much self-help, but learning a new concept, a new technique, something like that in January. If that sounds like something that you may be interested in, you're definitely in the right place, and we would love to have you be a part of the community. So definitely consider hitting that subscribe button and that notification bell so you never miss out. I put out videos every Wednesday and Sunday. For those of you that are returning, thank you so much for being here. It is absolutely incredible to be able to create this community with you guys and share my obsession of books with every single one of you. That being said, let's jump into this video. Now, the first book that I want to talk about, I actually do not have a physical copy of, which honestly ended up working out for the best, as I was not a huge fan. This is actually a non-fiction book that was meant to be a memoir that somehow went slightly wrong. This one is called One in a Millennial, and it was written by Kate Kennedy. Furthermore, the title continues on to say, on friendships, feelings, fangirls, and fitting in. This was supposed to be Kate Kennedy's life and how she felt about growing up in the millennials time period. However, while the book does touch on certain aspects, which I think were very, very accurate, for example, social media taking off, talking about the worlds of blogging, YouTube, all of that culture, talking about 9/11, talking about some of the things that were definitely big during the millennial time period, such as Lisa Frank, etc., it didn't really feel like the author was speaking too much from the perspective of a memoir. It sounded more like she was just trying to share things that happened during the millennial era. For this reason, the book rubbed me the wrong way. The thing is, as a millennial myself, someone who was born early 90s, I felt that this book was something that I should be able to connect to, feel a sense of comfort and camaraderie through, and really understand what the author was going through as we kind of grew up during the same time periods. And outside of the few topics that I just mentioned, most of the book felt like it was just passing by, talking about different events that occurred, but not so much how it affected the author herself. That for me is what really took away from this book, and it felt more like a chronological, what is the word I'm looking for? Time capsule, than it did an actual memoir. For this reason, and this reason only, this was a 2-star book for me. Now, typically I don't really rate memoirs, and if I do, it's only 5-star memoirs that really hit me hard, stayed with me, and made me think. Those are the ones that typically I will revisit or talk about very, 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 what am I trying to say? I will talk about them in a lot of depth. There we go, on my channel, because I do feel like there are those memoirs out there that really speak to me. But for the most part, I feel like a person's history, a person's story is not something you can really judge. It's something unique to them, and it's fun to read and get a glimpse into their life and the experiences they've had and what they've taught them. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I get to judge their life. So typically a memoir for me, if it's a 3-star, is not so much that it's a judgment passing as much as it is, hey, this wasn't the right memoir for me. And if it's a 5-star, it's usually because it really spoke to me and it inspired me. With this particular book, considering I was walking in expecting a memoir and I felt like I got more of a time capsule, that is a reason it was a 2-star read for me. I was also supremely excited to read this book because, again, it focuses on the millennial generation. But I think because I didn't quite get that energy or quite get that vibe from this book, it did unfortunately end up being one of my least favorites for 2025, and it did get the dreaded 2-star. The next one that I want to talk about is a contemporary romance, and this book no longer exists on my shelf. I felt like I lost brain cells reading this book. That's not to say that the book itself is terrible or that there isn't a group of people that may enjoy this book. And again, it's no harsh commentary on the author herself per se, but this book was just not for me. It definitely felt like it filled more the space of a erotica type of vibe than what I thought I was going to be getting from the story. So I think once again, this was a disappointing read for me personally because I did not get what I thought I was going to be getting from this book. And that book is Pucked by Helena Hunting. Helena Hunting. This book was a solid 1-star, maybe 1.5-star read for me. Why, you may ask? Because the book seemed like it was going to be something else. Violet, who is our main female character, is described as someone who is very well read. She loves a nerdy vibe. She's very much into her studies, and she's kind of focused on that. She also doesn't really like hockey stars because she feels like they're all playboys and they're all ridiculous. And she doesn't get along with her stepbrother for this reason because he's also very irritating and very hockey boy vibes. However, she unfortunately runs into the famous NHL player, Alex Waters, and she thinks that he's another waste of space until she realizes that he's actually very well read, intelligent, and that they can actually get along and kind of relate on the intellectual aspect of their relationship. So that is the way this book is described. I'm actually going to read the genuine summary that was prepared for this book so you guys can hear what I'm talking about and why I thought this is what I was going to find. The first standalone novel in the Pucked series. With a famous NHL player for a stepbrother, Violet Hall is well acquainted with the playboy reputation of many a hockey star. So of course she isn't interested in legendary team captain Alex Waters or his pretty beat-up face and rock-hard six-pack abs. That should have been my giveaway, honestly. But when Alex inadvertently obliterates Violet's misapprehension regarding the inferior intellect of hockey players, he becomes much more than just a hot body with the face to match. Suffering from a complete lapse in judgment, Violet discovers just how good Alex is with the hockey stick in his pants. Again, should have figured it out from there. Violet believes her night of orgasmic magic with Alex is just that, one night. Alex starts to call and text and email and send extravagant and quirky gifts. Suddenly he's too difficult to ignore and nearly impossible not to like. The problem is the media portrays Alex as a total player and Violet doesn't want to be part of the game. Now this is the summary for the Audible version of this book. I should have read this first. The back of the book actually makes it sound more like they're going to connect on a deeper level and that the characters have a lot of depth, which is why I was really frustrated when I read this book. The summary projected in this book is probably more accurate to what the book actually represented. I think this book could have been written in 30 pages or less. I feel like 80% of this book was spice, and I don't think there was any depth between the characters to really help me enjoy that spice. Don't get me wrong, I will happily read a book that has spice in it as long as it's well placed, there's a purpose behind it, and the banter is solid between the two characters, and there's a little bit of slow burn vibes. This book did not have that. It had no growth of the characters. It didn't really feel like there was any banter between the characters. It didn't really feel like there was anything going on between the characters, and it didn't feel like either character had any depth to them except for the fact that quote unquote they were hot. Also, I found the main female lead character to be very unlikable, and that really frustrated me. She's whiny, she's irritating, and she honestly doesn't respect or appreciate anything that she has. And I think that really, really rubbed me the wrong way. That being said, I am sure there are moments where this type of book is perfect. I am sure there are books in this series that are probably amazing. And as you can see, I'm a sucker for a hockey romance too. I absolutely love Becca Mack's books. I love Liz Tom Ford. I absolutely enjoy Elle Kennedy. And obviously those all have some spice, but I just felt like the characters had a little bit more depth. So Pucked was definitely outside of my working space. And it ended up being truly, actually, if I'm being very, very honest, like a 0.5 star read for me. I remember complaining to my husband every moment of reading that book. And I remember him just being like, get rid of it. And I couldn't do it. I had to DNF it. And then I did end up sending it off to one of my friends who felt like it would be better rehomed with one of her friends who was looking for that kind of, soft, easy to read kind of book. And I think, like I said, there is a place for that and there's no judgment towards anyone who reads them. I also like a good spice book every once in a while, but this one was just too much for me. And that is why it made the list of the worst of 2025. These next 3 books I still own, and it's either because they are part of a series or it is because I didn't like them, but I do feel like there is a purpose to the book. So it's one of those like shady areas. And that I'm going to start off with Hothouse Flower. Now, for those who know, I did do a review on this series, both the Calloway sisters as well as the Addicted series. And this is actually one of the books in the Calloway sister series. It is following one of the 3 sisters, the youngest sister, in this case, Daisy, as well as her love interest, who is an older man who also happens to be half brother and older brother to Lauren, who we meet in the Addicted series and absolutely love. That being said, Logan, I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm saying. But the problem is I don't like Reich and I don't like Daisy. Reich, honestly, is one of those characters where I think he's absolutely awesome in the sense of how he helps his brother get out of addiction and what role he plays with all of his other friends. But I feel like with Daisy, he really irritates me. I understand that he's supposed to play a role where basically it shows that he respects her and sees her at more of a mature level than anybody else does. And because of her experiences through modeling and other such industries, she has been forced to experience a lot of things that people her age should not be able to do so. And I do also appreciate that they waited until both characters were legal before anything happened between the 2 characters, and that slow build was there. But my frustration is with Daisy herself. Daisy, I feel like, is very adrenaline junkie. She's very, very, very immature in a lot of the decisions that she makes. And while I do understand she's been exposed to mature situations because of her inability to deal with her own insecurities, as well as find a space to feel like she can exist with her sisters and actually share the difficulties she's going through, she consistently puts herself in very, very precarious situations. And I feel like Reich is consistently bailing her out rather than letting her actually learn the lessons that she needs to learn. I do think, that being said, the final book in the series where we kind of get to see all 3 of the characters and where they end up, like all 3 couples set, I should say, all 3 of the couples, as well as their future, their children, all of that, when it's explored, I respect Daisy a lot more. I think she's definitely more mature by that point in the series. But in this book in particular, I was really irritated. A lot of the injuries that she suffers, a lot of the things that happened to her, I think was very self-inflicted. And it's because, again, she's reckless, she's miserable, she's depressed, and she won't address the main issue. And I feel like Reich not pushing her is actually one of the worst qualities I saw in him, because I truly feel like if you're going to have a partnership, you should be able to call your loved ones out on something that may be going wrong and doing your best to get them in a position of safety rather than going along with what they're saying and kind of giving in to them. So I felt like the relationship between Reich and Daisy was really frustrating because Reich came down a maturity level in order to be able to connect with Daisy. And I understand she's a beautiful girl, but come on, dude. So for that reason, I was really frustrated with this book. I have no issue with the age gap romance. I have no issue with the 2 of them being together. I think that part makes a lot of sense. I think it was built up very beautifully. And I do think because it's been ongoing since the Addicted series initially as well, like it's not a surprise when that happens. And I do think a lot of the other drama they deal with in terms of how their families are going to react and things like that makes sense. But I also don't like the fact that Reich is two-faced because he treats Lily so poorly. And that really irritates me, especially because he makes her feel like crap all the time and then sits there and puts Daisy on a pedestal, even though she also has very terrible tendencies as well. The only Calloway sister that I can say without doubt is very well put together, even though she also has her flaws, is Rose Calloway. So Daisy was just hard to stomach, and Reich and his righteousness towards the other two characters, and then the way he behaves with Daisy is just really frustrating. So for me, this was a 2-star read because the characters irritated the crap out of me. Book was very well written though, and I will say that it was an enjoyable read for the type of genre this is and for the type of book that it is. But I just could not get behind this couple in this book. And it was honestly giving me a high blood pressure reading this book and hearing the justification these characters would give. Therefore, it ended up being one of the least favorites of 2025. And number 5 for 2025 would be Where the Library Hides by Isabel Ibanez. Now, this is the second book in the series, and I really enjoyed Where the River Flows, something like that, in the original series. Let me see what the actual book is called. It should say it in here. What the River Knows. There we go. What the River Knows, I felt like was very enjoyable. Where the Library Hides, I felt like was very unreasonable. The two love interests and their relationship was very hard to believe, very hard to support, because the things the main male character does to the female character, the ways in which he betrays her, I don't really think you can come back from that. Stealing someone's money, marrying them against false pretenses, not ever really expressing your feelings or showing any interest in the person, and then finally showing a sense of love at the very end of the book, couldn't really get behind it. Also, the craziness of what happened with this main female lead character's parents and how miserable of human beings they are. Again, very hard to stomach, very hard to appreciate. And honestly, a lot of the things that happened in this book were just a little too far-fetched for me, even though it does touch on magical realism. That being said, I do think the first book was really fun, and I love the fact that the books are set in Egypt, and I love the vibes of the book and the overall adventurous spirit and storyline that's happening. But I just felt like the main two characters were very hard to redeem in this book, and I felt like our main female character is also very reckless, puts herself in dangerous situations all the time. As I mentioned, it's really hard to appreciate the main male character in this book, but most importantly, the parents being as incorrigible as they are and as painful and frustrating as they are, and then trying to justify what they did and how they behaved at the end of the book is just too much for me. Too much adultery, too much craziness that's happening in this book, and for that reason, I just could not support this book. I felt like when I first started reading it, I thought I would really get into it. And then about halfway through the book, my face just fell, and it took me days and weeks to get through this book because it was just that painful to read. So for that reason, this ended up being a 2-star read for me. Again, no commentary on the author herself or her writing style or even the way she weaves the story. It was just one of those things where this particular storyline and these particular characters rubbed me in such a wrong way and hit me in such a wrong way that it left me boiling when I was done with this book. And honestly, I didn't even know if I wanted to keep it on my shelf, even though it is part of a series, and I did enjoy the first book. So for that reason, this one also ended up being a 1.5 to 2-star read for me and ended up being one of my least favorite books of 2025. All right, guys, and that does bring me to the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know it's not my usual traditional book review. I usually like to focus on positive books, but I'm trying to open up to the idea that maybe we share some negative reviews on here too. The thing is, I think every book hits every single person a little bit differently, and that's the beauty of books. I also love having bookish communication and conversations and book clubs and all such things, because just because you view a book in a certain way doesn't mean that somebody else does. And if you come in with an open mind and you have an open discussion, a book can land a different way. Clear example of this, I read a book called My Murder last year for one of my book clubs. I didn't think I was going to like it. It was one of those books that was dystopian, set in the future, and a lot of the things just rubbed me the wrong way. But the more we talked about it at the book club, I actually realized this book was extremely powerful. It stuck with me for quite some time, made me think about so many different things, especially the role of women in our society. And it was just very eye-opening to see how many different perspectives you can get from this book. And now My Murder actually happens to be one of my favorite books, even though it left me with a little bit of an ick factor, because in that particular case, the ick factor that it left behind actually led to me thinking openly and growing a little bit and enjoying having that communication and conversation with my colleagues. So I do think that when it comes to books, it's okay if a book makes you feel uncomfortable and you feel like you've gained something from the book. In this particular instance, these 5 books in particular, I felt like just rubbed me the wrong way and didn't quite hit home the way I wanted them to, and honestly left me in a position where I walked out of the book feeling like I kind of wish I never read that or expended my energy on it. So for me personally, these were not my favorites. That being said, please don't think I'm judging you if you did enjoy them. If you did enjoy them because of the exact opposite statement I made earlier about how you can change your mind on books based on conversation, leave me your comments below. Tell me why it was your favorite. Tell me why you enjoyed it, and let's have a conversation about it. I read every single comment that people leave behind, and I genuinely love having a conversation with you guys. This is a two-way street. The other thing I wanted to say is if any of these books are on your TBR and you do end up getting to them, let me know what you think. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if for some reason I did dissuade you from reading the book, I do apologize. This is meant to be just in fun and jest. And again, none of this is a commentary on the authors themselves. I think what they're creating, being able to write a book and even put it out on market, is such a big deal, especially in the case of the memoir, which is something that was clearly near and dear to the author. I just didn't particularly connect with the way she presented it. That being said, I did want to say that I hope wherever you guys are, you're having a wonderful day and a wonderful night, and I hope you're getting plenty of time with your loved ones and your family and plenty of time to relax and read. I truly enjoy this bookish community that we're creating together. For those of you that are new, I would love to see you back. Definitely consider hitting that subscribe and notification bell. However, if you are returning, I cannot thank you enough for all of the support you guys give me, and I'm very much looking forward to reading all the great books that are coming out this upcoming year. If you haven't seen it already, definitely check out the anticipated reads of 2026, and I'll definitely link below some of my book reviews for you guys as well in case you're interested, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye guys!